hey guys, didn't see you there. Welcome back to the PPL. Today we're going to go over our laser cutting procedures for the lab in terms of getting started for our initial building. We'll start at the laser cutter and then we'll move over to how we work on the computer. But just getting started, this is a Fusion laser cutter. The size of the board that we utilize is 40 inches by 28 inches. Typically, the wood that we use is 24 by 12 for its maximum dimensions. I don't know or think that there's a lot of wood that goes to that maximum dimensions, but we've had teams in the past have 4 by 36 pieces, 8 by 28, so those types of pieces are perfectly fine in there. Typically, for the laser cutter, we use balsa wood and basswood, but we can do light ply as well, and then cardboard, I'd say, is the main ones that we use. This will be operated by the lab technicians. In the PPL, all we need you guys to focus on is turning in the actual laser cut file. So we'll move on. Okay, so moving on to our computer work. In the lab, we use AutoCAD 2023 for all of our laser cutting. We already have predetermined laser cut presets. So as you can see here, we have 16th balsa cut, 16th bass cut, 16th ply. Usually the thickest that we're able to go is our 1/8 inch pieces. We can do 1/4 inch balsa or ply as well. It just sometimes doesn't get the most through cut, and I don't think any of the planes will likely use that large of wood, but every other common wood we should be able to cut. In terms of the way that things need to be labeled on your sheet, I know some teams are using CATIA, others are using 3D Experience, SolidWorks, whatever you use. When you create your drafts to be sent, I need them to be saved as DXF or STLs when they're sent. That way they can be opened up on here and edited. Also, when you're doing your drafts, as you can see with this page right here, it's green and red. So essentially what this means is the red is interior pieces, and this will let the laser cutter know that it will be cut out first. That way, if we happen to have this piece fall out or something, it can be corrected. Or if you were to cut out the green part, or this exterior green part first, the parts in the interior might not be precisely placed. So you want to get your interior parts cut out first using red, and then all the exterior parts cut out in green. We use the standard RGB color settings, so you'll want to make your green on your draft for 0, 255, 0, and then for your red it's going to be 255, 0, 0. That way it just keeps everything coherent. If you have those colors set, it makes it easiest on the lab techs for when they make your cuts. Additionally, going back to this part, we need pieces to be labeled with your team number. So in this case it was team 3. It needs to have your wood type and thickness, and then also the grain direction you want to go. This is just to ensure the most clarity for the lab techs. It makes us easy to keep tracks. It makes us knowing that we're doing the right thing. So all those need to be labeled as well. This information should be on the Blackboard post as well for laser cutting, which is good. When you send the laser cuts, it goes to our email. Our email, which we'll post, is wsulasercutter@gmail.com. I know a lot of you probably have experience sending it to the laser cutter for classes like 512. So that's the email that we need it sent to. We have a very specific naming convention for when you name your files. We need them to have your team with your number. So in this case, let's say team 3, and then we need to have what your wood is, what thickness, we need your wood type, and then we need what number of cuts. So if you're doing multiple 16th inch bass cuts, there'll be a 16th bass 1, 16th bass 2, 16th bass 3, etc. Again, this just makes the labeling system the most coherent for the group in terms of the lab techs. And then if we know a mistake was made, or maybe perhaps you need something recut, we can know where to find it easily. Also, it's likely that you're going to be sending a large number of files, so should be sent in a zip format. It just needs to be sent team number with your laser and a zip. Some example of bad laser cut files, if we have, I know internally you guys might have specific cuts for what they're called, but we need these to be following that other procedure. If you send something to us on our email with stuff mislabeled, we're going to just send it back to you, say, hey, can you make these changes? And then you'll just be moved to the bottom of the queue in terms of laser cutting. So that's all the logistics for how the laser cutter operates, how we need stuff sent. One last thing, when you send us stuff, ideally, don't add too many additional directions as it can get confusing. Just send your stuff in its form with the green and red labeled, your team number and the direction. If you have any problems with how stuff is cut, come talk to us. If we're having any problems with your cuts, we'll let you know. But it just makes it easiest to streamline. It's hard to answer. There's a lot of teams. It's hard to answer all of those emails. So we just want to get your stuff downloaded and cut as soon as possible. And then yeah, if there's problems, we'll definitely communicate that early. Okay, so now going into how stuff's set up. Again, for the most part, it's going to be up to you guys how you organize your parts. Obviously, you're the ones designing the plane. But just a couple things to be cognizant of. Use your space well. This is an example of a team that used their space very well. It's organized. They don't have a lot of empty space. You guys are the ones that are paying for the wood, so I just advise keeping it organized. It makes it simpler for all the processes. Again, if a piece breaks, you'll know where to find it, and stuff like that. To go off of some errors, this is a team that we'd say wouldn't have the greatest use of space. They also don't have a grain direction labeled. Some of their parts are offset. They're using a yellow color. They have red on the outside, so it's just kind of unorganized. Again, we're gonna cut your stuff regardless of how it looks, but it's just a benefit of helping you guys. Also, if you need parts in a certain grain direction, make sure it's set like that. You wouldn't put it at an angle. And then also just be sure to not have parts overlap. If parts overlap, the laser cutter is gonna cut them. It might slice your parts up in a spot that you don't want it at. In terms of spacing, some teams, like this piece was a tooling piece. The team was okay with having the lines cut so they could cut out multiple things at the same time. A little bit of spacing for something like this also wouldn't be problematic. If you guys are going to cut really small parts close together, there is a likelihood that the laser cutter might burn those pieces, or the laser cutter has a grate, they might fall through the grate. So little caveats like that, just be careful of. If we notice something probably isn't going to work, we will email you back and let you know for those types of pieces. But yeah, I would advise, if you have smaller pieces, maybe put a tab on it so that it doesn't directly fall through once it's laser cut. And then also, you just don't want to put super, super small pieces close together, as it could get burned. Going off of coloring, there is also an option if you do the typical dark blue, standard blue color, not dark blue, standard blue color, it can create engravings. I wouldn't say it's been too heavily utilized by teams, but it is a possibility. If you have questions, just talk to the lab tech. By, say, the standard coloring for most of the work that you guys will be doing, just use red and green from the RGB. Here's another example. This was wing tooling setup, just a good organized work to go off as well. And then the last part I'll discuss is just the border area. So as you can tell, these are just white. This is just for this case, it's a 12 by 24 square. Feel free to include this in your draft. It just makes it easier on the lab techs to know how your stuff is aligned. We're able to see if you have potentially a piece super close to an edge that might not get cut fully. So if you can, please include a white line around the perimeter of the wood type you're cut. So if you're doing a 12 by 24, create a 12 by 24 square, etc. That just makes it easiest on the lab tech. It's not going to actually be cut out, it's just for us to visualize. But yeah, there's additional information for all laser cutting stuff on Blackboard. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email wclasercutter@gmail.com or come into the lab and we can get you situated. There's a lot of teams, so we'd like to get this process as streamlined as possible. So yeah, if you have any questions, please communicate. But yeah, thanks for watching.